This is Fearless Careerist with Dr. Catherine Robert. In this Foundations episode, Catherine compares the differing ways researchers categorize career stages and argues for a new way of thinking about career progression.
Spoiler alert, traditional career stages no longer apply to understanding our chaotic, non-linear career paths.
Here's Catherine Robert.
Welcome to episode 13 of Fearless Careerist. Today, we're talking about the foundational concept of career stages and whether we can still think of our career in stages given the seismic shifts in how we work, the rapid expansion of AI use for job functions, and the volatile job markets that have caused employment disruptions for millions of workers. In our last Foundations episode, we covered early career decisions and talked about the importance of shaping our career identities through career exploration and building our belief that we can perform a particular job. If we have a strong belief in our ability to perform, known as self-efficacy, and we have selected a career that we are interested in, then there's a higher likelihood that we will experience success or career competency. Simplified, think of it as an equation where career exploration plus self-efficacy equals career competency. This equation is only talking about our early stage career, however. In this episode, I'm going to talk about what comes next in our careers after the beginning. Is it happily ever after? Not so fast. While working on the Fearless Careerist book, I wrote the story of my own career chronologically. It makes sense, right? To tell the story from beginning to the end. Then I worked to add tips and worksheets for the reader to help think through their own job changes. I wanted to provide structure to the career advice, but how should I do it? Chronologically, I saw distinct differences between my 20s, 30s, and 40s, though it wasn't a clean break from one decade to another. Plus, my story didn't follow a neat upward trajectory, starting with an entry-level job, then getting promoted into happily ever after. I had an entry-level office job in college, experienced career drift, and ran my own business in my 20s, then entered my career in education in my late 20s. While I did move up from there, entering higher ed meant that I later took a couple of steps backwards in pay and status. Changing industries multiple times also meant that I didn't develop as many contacts and close professional relationships as maybe I should have. To gain perspective, I dug into career research to see how scholars view the different points of our work lives. The problem was that there was not universal agreement on how many career stages we encounter. When I read about career exploration, I didn't see a lot of differences in how we define the phase in books and research articles. Any conversation about our success in our careers generally includes a mention of self-efficacy, which I talked about in the previous episode. So, while there is a generalized agreement in how we think about the beginning of our work lives, there's far less agreement over how to categorize our career stages when we move past the starting line. As explained by researchers Silva, Vilela, and Casado, 3 different models are most commonly used in career stage studies. The first model is by age, which was my first thought in how to think about careers. Another method is to look at career stages based on how long you've been in a particular company. A third method is to consider how long you've been in a specific position, such as the number of years you've been a teacher. So here's a handy breakdown of those 3 things. By age, time and company, time and position. So the time and position model made sense to me. For example, there's specific skills you learn as your first year as a teacher, such as how to write a lesson plan or how to work with difficult students. And you improve and build your teaching skills each year from there on. Donald Super famously coined the term life career rainbow, which has 5 stages, starting with your early career thoughts in childhood, your exploration stage from ages 15 to 25, establishment once you've identified a career, then maintenance, and finally disengagement. And here's a breakdown of those ages. Each of those models of thinking about careers have value, but none of them specifically fit the questions and answers I had in my own career. According to Super, I should have been in the maintenance stage at age 45, where I was merely concerned with maintaining what I had already achieved. Instead, I was actually starting over in a slightly different industry, moving from a school district to a university, and from a career as a central office administrator to a researcher, and then assistant professor job. Super proposed that our need to be promoted decreases in this stage. I wish that were true, but I actually felt compelled to power through the tenure track as quickly as possible, since you cannot otherwise get promoted in higher ed without tenure, and the pay for an entry-level professor was much lower than the pay in my previous career. A lot has changed in the world of work since Donald Super proposed his life career rainbow in 1976, so I was definitely interested in finding out if there were updated ideas for our careers in the research. Silva Villela and Casado's systematic review considered more recent research and found that there was no agreement among scholars about how career stages play out. They charted the career stages as defined in 20 different articles. Chronological age was commonly used, but the groupings of ages were not the same. Some scholars defined career exploration up to age 30, and remember, other scholars placed it between 18 to 25 years of age, while others placed the declining or disengagement stage as early as 50, and remember, Super put his at age 65. Their recommendation is for HR managers to train and develop workers in all stages and ages, with the understanding that two people of the same age and/or same job may be in completely different career stages. This need for HR to think carefully about differing employees' needs was definitely true for me when I was a new assistant professor at the age of 46. The training we received was designed for first-year professionals and for people who had not taught before. I was not only an experienced teacher and administrator in the K-12 world, I had 30 years of overall work experience at that point. All learning is valuable, and I was grateful for the training time, but I would have liked extended learning that advanced my understanding of how universities function and opportunities to meet colleagues, for example. Since our 21st century careers will involve more than 13 job changes, how do we define career stages when we will be bouncing around more frequently than previous generations? How do we account for industry shifts, such as beginning computer programmers now losing their jobs to AI bots, and for the overall volatility in the job market, such as what professionals experienced in the Great Recession? If you look at a millennial's resume, say someone who graduated between 2006 and 2012, you will very likely see experience gaps, odd jobs that didn't fit their desired career, and gig labor that was not full-time. This pattern defies traditional models and will likely continue to evolve with our economic roller coaster. Without the comfort of scholarly agreement, how could I help readers organize their thoughts about job changes? It would be so much easier if we could use a simple equation, like if you are 25 and want to change careers, do it. If you're 45, do not. But it's not that simple. A couple of books I found grabbed onto a similar concern that we need to redefine our thoughts about career stages in light of a changing world. Jeffrey Selingo in There Is Life After College took on the issue that late teens through early 20s aged people were facing a problematic period that defied our traditional understanding of young adulthood. Citing Arnett's 2000 research, he defined a new term of emerging adulthood for 18 to 25-year-olds, in which many different directions remain possible and when little about the future has been decided for certain. Does this pattern sound familiar to you? It rings true in my experience. I definitely had no idea what I ultimately wanted to do when I was aged 18 to 25. When I finally settled into a job that paid enough money for me to meet basic expenses, I even stopped thinking about my career path for a while, hanging out while I took a break from the agonizing search for direction and purpose. Selingo explains that emerging adults move into adulthood either as sprinters, wanderers, or stragglers. A third of us are sprinters, who are those that have a job lined up after college, or they get purposeful graduate degrees and useful internships on their way to a successful career. Wanderers, also representing a third of us, are not as quick out of the gate, may have changed majors a few times, and they often land back in graduate school for the structure, but not so much for a specific plan. And they likely started working in a job that was outside of their desired career. Finally, stragglers are less likely to finish college, any college program, and struggle to find employment overall. As much as I would like to identify as a sprinter, realistically, I fit into the wanderer category. As graduation approached, I did not have a designated career path, so I enrolled in a master's program to postpone the career decision, and ultimately took about 8 years to settle into a career in education. Where do you fit into one of these three groupings? Selingo's work is from about 10 years ago, so I'd be curious to see if new research would show the same distribution of sprinters, wanderers, and stragglers. Is it possible for 33% of graduates today to find desirable jobs right out of college and/or their graduate program? Another writer, Bruce Feiler, wrestled with more than just career stages. In Life is in the Transitions, Feiler argues that it's not only careers that no longer follow a straight path, life overall is nonlinear, and that we need to learn how to master the skill of transitions in order to cope with a nonlinear life. I was excited to see this perspective because it came closest to my thinking about careers. Here's an image of what Feiler is saying. It's not a line. It's any kind of shape. And that's what he asks people about in the book is, how would you define the shape of your life? I was excited to see this perspective because it came the closest to my thinking about careers. Our careers rarely follow a neat linear path. We need to be thoughtful about if, when, and how we make job or career changes. Understanding, of course, that we will likely need to do so many times in our work lives. It's a skill that we need to build. Instead of thinking about our careers as following a distinct linear pathway, I see the career as more like a bingo card in which we are gaining skills at each step along the way. So does the career path still exist? I never say never, but for the vast majority of us, there will likely be pit stops and detours on what we call a path. If we consider it more as an interactive, immersive experience, we'll worry less about the changes and focus more on the experiences themselves. To learn more about my career experience bingo card or to contact me, see the links in our show notes. I'm so excited you're here. And remember, you're not alone on your career journey. Together, we can share our stories, move boldly into that perfect job, and we can light the path for our future fearless careerists. I'm Catherine Robert, and I can't wait to hear your story.
Fearless Careerist is available on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Subscribe there or visit us at catherinerobertedd.com.